Welcome back to another episode of Straight Facts on the Football Terrace. I'm very honoured today. A little bit starstruck if I'm being absolutely honest with you. We've got Mike Parrott here from the United Muppeteers. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, thanks. Big fan of yours as well, so I just can't take those compliments. So thanks for that. Great to be here. I know we've been working on this for a while, and yeah, it's going to be good.
No, yeah, I'm looking forward to it, mate. And there's lots going on at the moment in the transfer window as well. There really, really is. And we'll be delving into that. Viewers, of course, a big thank you to each and every single one of you that has been tuning in. The podcast is going from strength to strength to strength. It really, really is. If you want to follow the podcast and you haven't done so yet, the link is in the description below, and we have pinned it into the live comments section as well. And if you are listening on the podcast, and this is just a direct thank you to each and every single one of you. Lots coming up today. We're going to be talking about the done deal that is pretty much over the line now. Liverpool, out of the blue, Luis Diaz from Porto is going to be coming in. We will be delving into Man United's transfer window and looking at the possibility of a signing, with a big report from Spain that United are leading the race for Kamara. Aubameyang could be on his way to Juve or Barcelona, and we'll be giving a bit of a roundup on what's going on. Any questions that you've got, please feel free to send them in to us now. We always prioritize our members and our super chats as well. But I think we have to start with the big news of the day. Our rivals, as both us being Manchester United fans, Liverpool pulling off Luis Diaz. I mean, did you see this deal coming at all?
I think it's kind of surprising, in my opinion. Not really the money we normally see Liverpool spend. I think it's going to total around 60 million euros, I think, if I'm correct. I think it's like 40 million plus a bunch of bonuses.
Yeah.
Kind of surprising because he doesn't really fit the mold of a Jurgen Klopp player. He's not really that much of a worker, but they kind of need someone to start replacing Sadio Mane. I know he's been all right this season, but he's not been on like the level of Salah, Jota, or even Firmino to an extent. So I think he could be good. He's one of those Portuguese, I know he's obviously not Portuguese, but those Portuguese league dribblers were known for, like Quaresma, Ronaldo, etc., Nani even. And he's going to bring that great winger, great dribbler, and got a lot of creativity. I think he's got quite high assist numbers, if not expected assist numbers. But it's a weird one. He's very un-Jurgen Klopp, to be fair.
Yeah, do you know what? I look at it. I look at it along the lines of, they obviously got Van Dijk in the January window. I was surprised to see it happen now. I think that's more to do with Liverpool, Tottenham becoming close. I think Tottenham were on the brink. They were on the verge, and it's kind of forced their hand. I think it's a great deal in terms, again, the structure that Liverpool always managed to get a good structure. And as an ex-financier, I always look at the structure. So 40 plus 25. The 25 is, conditional bonuses. So even if he doesn't reach the heights that he's expected to, it's only going to cost around £30 million, which in the modern day game, I'm not going to say it's a pittance, but Tyrone Mings cost 25 million. So do you know what I mean? When you sort of weigh it up in that regard, it's a pretty good deal. And the medical's booked in, we know what a technically good footballer he is. And I think the point you're making there is right. It's that beginning to now refresh that attacking lineup, which has been brilliant for Liverpool for 3, 4, 5 years. But everything, we know as United fans, all good things come to an end and have to kind of be refreshed.
Yeah, I think he'll be a good addition. I think, like I'm saying, his creation is going to be great. And it seems like they are losing it a bit because Firmino, albeit, is still quite a good player. He hasn't always put up the best of stats. Mane's dropping off a bit. They need someone because Jota and Salah are scoring goals for fun, as we see. I think they're both the top 2 in the Prem right now for goals. I know Salah's obviously top. I think Jota's like maybe second or third. But having someone like Diaz is really going to help their creativity. He's a good crosser, great at getting into the box. And just, like I said, I can't express how good of a dribbler he is. He's one of the best dribblers in Europe. So I think it's going to be a good one. I think it could be similar, as you said, to the Jota deal, which is because that was just a lot of add-ons, wasn't it? And a lot of installment payments. So I assume it's going to be quite similar to that.
Yeah, Liverpool are the masters at putting these deals together, and again, Klopp's record of buying players is very good. Of course, people will say like, "Oh, well, he's like, Karius." I'm like, yeah, but like Karius is so outweighed by the level of quality signings that he and Liverpool have brought into the club, and I think he's probably one of the number one targets. I think he's someone that was right up there. I just believe that they've done it early because of the Tottenham situation, and I'm intrigued to see how this kind of impacts the rest of their season. Yes, they're 9 points behind Man City. They've got that game in hand. But sometimes a signing can, if the signing, I know typically Klopp likes to bleed his players in slowly. But if this can have I know it's coming from the same league, so I'm going to use this example. If he could have almost a Bruno-esque impact, and I'm not talking about the level of goals, I'm just talking impact in general, where he comes in and there is this resurgence from Liverpool, this new boost. Like, I want to see a title race. Just as a football fan, I want there to be something. I don't want all of City's and Liverpool's and Chelsea's games now to mean almost nothing. He could be that impetus for him.
Yeah, definitely. I think everyone wants a bit of a title race now. It's getting a bit boring just watching City walk the league. So even if it is Liverpool, from a United standpoint, it'll be good to see them at least have a bit like that. I mean, yeah, you could easily have that Bruno impact. I think just because of how good he is, people forget how much of an impact he had in that first half season when they bought him at the end of January. Like, I think United were like 7th or 8th at the time, and they got easily top 4 after a while. And he could easily have that. I know they've been struggling a bit more, and obviously with Mane and Salah being at AFCON, but I think it'll be great having another player like that just because they can rest those players. It'll allow Mane to be a lot more fresher, which means you'll get more out of him. Same with Jota and Firmino having that rotation, and might be able to drop Salah occasionally. So I think Diaz will be a great signing for them, but I just want to see how well he'll fit and how long it could take him to like acclimate to Klopp's system.
Yeah, of course, and I think that's always key. If he follows the sort of, if you look at Konate, it's only taking him. I mean, I think Konate is brilliant at Liverpool, and Liverpool have done me dirty in recent years because they've signed so many players that I wanted. So
Yeah, same.
Fabinho, Mane, Thiago, Jota was an old client of mine, so I know Jota. I loved him at Man United, and I see them all in Liverpool shirts, and it's painful. And I'm hoping this isn't another. I didn't know too much about Luis Diaz until the beginning of this month. I don't watch the Portuguese leagues, but I use Y Scout. I'm not too sure if you're aware of Y Scout.
Yeah.
It's honestly like, I don't do the YouTube comps because you can edit it. You really get to study elements of his game, and he's very good. And it's just whether or not he takes time to be embedded, like the Fabinhos, like the Konates of this world, or if it's more Mo Salah Mane-esque. And I know that they've both played in the Premier League before, but they just came in day one, snap. That they just got going straight away. So I'm very intrigued to see how he's used and the impact that he has. But that's always been Liverpool's issue, is been that strength in depth, really coming from that bench. If they have an injury to one of their top stars for a month, who can step in? And they've kind of rectified that this month, which, interestingly, when you think about the other clubs in and around the top 4 challenging for it, I mean, Tottenham just in the mud, like, to use a social media expression. I mean, how embarrassed do you think Spurs fans feel being hijacked twice in 24 hours for these deals?
I mean, they've got to be worried, haven't they? I know we keep seeing the reports that Conte's getting more and more frustrated, and everyone who's followed Antonio Conte's managerial career knows that if he doesn't get his signings, he might walk. So he's done wonders for Spurs up to now, but he could easily go at the end of the window. I wouldn't be surprised because, yeah, as you said, they've lost out on Diaz, have lost out on Adama. I think they're getting Amrabat, and I think that might be it, which is not good enough for Antonio Conte whatsoever. So I'll find it funny if he does move, if he does leave.
It's one of those things where I'm not even trying to be hyperbolic. If he was to leave on Monday night, Tuesday morning, I wouldn't be like, oh my God, I didn't see that coming. They promised him signings this month, and it was one of the big kind of spins when he came in, and it was, we are going to go big. We are going to give this manager what he wants, what he needs. And they haven't even come close to giving him what he wants at all. And that Amrabat could be a good player, but it seems like their two main stars. And I saw the beginning of the end when I saw a tier 1 on, I think it was Wednesday night, sort of say, actually, Adama was never a main priority. It was always Luis Diaz. As soon as I start seeing that kind of talk, I'm like, yeah, all right, mate. Or the other one. I just sort of saw this coming. I didn't see. We did a live stream yesterday morning because there was 2 stories, one from Portugal, one from the UK, about both deals being hijacked, and we love a story like that on the terrace. But my view was, I thought the first one was just to try and get Spurs to pay up the extra 4 or 5 million they were behind. Yeah. But yeah, their fans today must be just absolutely, I don't even know what the right word for it is, but fuming. Just fuming and angry and embarrassed at the way their club is being perceived and looked at now.
I mean, this is what they did under Pochettino, didn't they? Like, that was probably Spurs' best ever run. Well, as long as I've been alive, at least. And they just wouldn't give him the money, wouldn't they? I remember they went a summer without buying anyone, and I think he was always like a net spend positive or something. Like, it's just kind of expected from Spurs, and it was a bit of a surprise because that was always the big question when Conte took over: was like, will he get the transfers? And seems to be
Yeah.
answered quite clearly.
The answer is no. You're being treated exactly the same way as every other single manager before you. And you know what's interesting? Like one of the kind of bugbears I know a lot of Liverpool fans, you know, that call into the terrace. I can only speak anecdotally through what they say to us, but a lot of the frustrations they had was very much around we built this title winning and Champions League winning team. But we know this as Man United fans, when you get to the top, when you're building, you can use youth. You can buy like a cheap player that you turn into a superstar. You can do that. Man United did it. You look at some of their early signings, you know, Dennis Irwins and Roy Keanes. These weren't like mega stars at the time, but we turned them into them. Once you're at the top, though, and you've got to try and stay there, it's harder to do because you don't have the luxury of being able to wait 5 years to challenge for a title again and scrap it all. You have to go big. You have to go and spend the 30 to 60 million pounds on players. And Liverpool started to do that, you know, you know, and sometimes you can get a really good bargain. You can bring in a Thiago who's worth 60, but you get him for 20 because of the contracts.
Yeah.
But you look at Tottenham and they built this team that almost won a league. They built a team that almost won a Champions League, but they didn't invest right. And you can point and look at Ndombele. Turned out to be Ndombele is exactly one of those European-based hype jobs in the end. Everybody on Twitter, baller, baller, baller. He ain't a baller. He ain't a baller. He looked good in some comps, and you know he ended up being awful. But they dropped money on him. But there's so many more things that team could have done. The fact that there's still no one to challenge Harry Kane is a disgrace. And we know this being a club that was at the elite end. We're an elite club, but we used to be there challenging. Fergie never let any player rest on their laurels. He would always bring somebody in to challenge them and to push them and to make them work harder. And yeah, this just shows me Tottenham are always going to be bridesmaids. They're always going to be bridesmaids in the Premier League. They're never, look, we've fallen from grace, but at least we were there. I'd rather be a has-been than a never was. And everything else. And I feel a bit sorry for them. My dad's a Spurs fan. I've got some good friends that are Spurs fans, and I feel a bit sorry for their supporters. I really do.
Yeah, same. I was a huge fan of Pochettino when he was at Spurs. I used to know someone who used to work at Spurs at the time, and I just used to love hearing the anecdotal stories about him and whatnot. And you wanted them to do well to an extent. Like you said, they were very United-esque in where they had a bunch of players from their academy or very young signings, like Dele Alli, for example, and he was playing great. And they would get these cheap signings, like they'd buy Kieran Trippier for dirt cheap from Burnley or someone like that. And it is a shame they have dropped off as well, as much as they have, but you've got to put it probably to the feet of Daniel Levy or someone along those lines who is making these deals, because Spurs have just been screwed over again, it seems, especially again, what Amrabat, like we said, who he's all right, but they could have had so much better players like Adama or Diaz. It's a shame really to see Spurs drop off as much as they have, really.
No, listen, I totally get you. I totally get you. I think, you know, from my point of view, I felt when you say feel sorry for someone, I always try to like say it in the right way so it kind of makes sense. But like I don't want to see Spurs up at the top because it will obviously hinder like what Manchester United can do and everything else around it. But at the same time, from a football fan point of view, I sort of look at it and think to myself, I don't know, that there's an element of it that just kind of rattles me a little bit when you think you were almost there. Why didn't you just do the things necessary to like win the trophies, which is what we're all here for? And I think that's why what do you call it? Liverpool fans should be very proud of what their club's done, because they're obviously trying their best to like rectify maybe some mistakes in the past and keep themselves at the top, and that's definitely the right thing to do, no doubt. We have a super chat here that says, "I'm interested on how much do you think Liverpool struggle in this AFCON period if they really have poor depth, like you told people?" I mean, that's obviously a question to me. The view is this. I wasn't someone that said they were going to fall behind. I'm someone that spoke about the AFCON break because a lot of people said that they would lose points in this area, and I didn't. In terms of Liverpool's strength in depth, it's definitely something they need to improve on. And the reason we know they need to improve on it is because they've just spent £60 million on a player to improve it. So to say that we're wrong to suggest they need more strength in depth, but then Liverpool go and buy more strength in depth, disproves anyone that disagrees with my opinion. Without trying to sound disrespectful, like if Liverpool didn't need anybody, they wouldn't have bought anybody. They'd stick with what they've got and promote another kid. We know they need. What you'll find is this: Minamino can come in any given game and do well. Scored a late equaliser in the League Cup. Great. If you had to play Minamino for 15 games straight because Jota and Mane are out injured, you're not going to get the same level of impact on games as you would from players of Diaz's quality, in my opinion. So it isn't about 1 or 2 game windows. It's about a prolonged period of time and having that strength in depth. A super chat here says Keane was the hottest property in Premier League football at the time. He was, to be fair, and that's probably a bad example from me. I stand corrected on that. It was what it was, but he was up and coming. What I'm talking about, he wasn't looked at as the best midfielder in Europe. He wasn't looked at as one of the top 2 or 3 midfielders in Europe in 1993. He grew to it. So you go out and spend £3 million on a player. You know, we didn't go to Italy or Spain and go, right, who's the best midfielder? Let's go and buy him to keep ourselves at the top. We bought someone that was 21 years old. That's my point. We had time to grow Roy Keane. And the reason we could grow Roy Keane is because the club had only just started winning again, and we had quality around him to do it. You know, so you need to get the balance right. That's what I was more alluding to. But thank you very much for that super chat. Another part of London, Arsenal. The big talk today of Aubameyang going to Barcelona or Juve. What's your take on the Aubameyang situation? Do you think Arsenal have handled it correctly?
It's been very weird, just overall this past month, especially with the whole AFCON thing that happened with him, where they said he had heart lesions, and then Aubameyang came out quite quickly afterwards saying that was a lie. Very, very weird. And it's supposedly just disciplinary issues in the end. So very weirdly done by Gabon there. But I think it's very weird. I think Aubameyang has sort of turned into that kind of very recent Arsenal tradition of player plays incredibly well for one season, gets a big contract, then starts half-arsing it, as we saw with Ozil. With Sanchez at United. I'm classing him in that. But yeah, he's just stopped caring, hasn't he, really? And they need him right now, but they're not going to. They're going to try and hold on to this thought process of just keeping him out. But it's going to be hard. Arsenal aren't scoring at the moment, really. They're having to rely. I mean, who's their starting striker right now? Lacazette? He's not playing that well. And yeah, they desperately need a striker again.
They do. And look, Aubameyang, there's no smoke without fire. I mean, they're linked with Isak. I read somewhere today. I haven't gone and verified this, but I read somewhere that Isak's got as many league goals this season as Aubameyang. A lot of people think he'll do absolute bits. Who knows? They obviously missed out on Vlahovic after spending the whole of January. Yeah, he does. He has four league goals this season. They missed out on Vlahovic. I saw Gunners last night celebrating, say "Oh, we're clearing house, we're getting rid of Deadwood. I'm really happy." And I'm thinking, but you're bringing no one in, mate. At the minute, you might still rectify that, but Eddie Nketiah is now linked with Newcastle today. If Eddie Nketiah leaves, Aubameyang isn't going to play. He might go as well. They're left with Lacazette the rest of the season. And maybe I'm just following the wrong accounts for this. I'm still seeing this. Oh, we're fine.
I keep seeing it.
We're fine. And and again, people misconstrued that with me going, oh, Terry just wants everybody ranting and smashing their head against the wall and setting things on fire. I don't. There's no way you can be this calm about your team. I look at Man United, and I know we're going to move on to them later, but Donny could still go. Lingard could still go. Martial's gone. Ahmad's gone. I think that's too many without a body coming in, because you suddenly get an injury or two, and then you get an injury or two next week, and then we're short for the rest of the season. And I don't like the risk that comes with that. And Arsenal are in such a good position. They're in such a good position whereby if they would have bought right this month, there may be favourites to make the top four based on the opening that's been presented by Man United having such a terrible season up really by what we expected at the beginning. Spurs haven't bought anyone. So the Conte effect is only going to go so far because he hasn't been given the quality. I thought Arsenal would bring in a striker, bring in a midfielder, solidify and really go for it to try and be ahead of their schedule. And it's almost... it's weird. They've got rid of more players than have come in, and I can't quite get my head around what's going on. And maybe we can't see the wood for the trees. Maybe there is a master plan at play here, but it seems just very odd to me, like especially with this Chambers and Nketiah deal, just one after the other.
Yeah, they just lack a finisher, don't they? Like the rest of the team looks quite good at the moment. I think they did well in summer. I think Tomiyasu's been a great deal for them. I think he's been a really underrated signing, but they just don't have a striker, do they? Like I said, I had a quick look before this, and they haven't scored in the last 4 games, which isn't good enough for a team that wants to be in top 4. I know some of them are in the League Cup as well and whatnot, but it's just not good enough in my opinion. Like, who's going to score for them? Lacazette hasn't been a prolific goal scorer since he was at Lyon, and who else is there now? I know they went all in on Vlahovic, even though they kept getting told, well, what we've seen from other like rumors and reports that he kept saying no. There is Isak, like you said, but again, he's not the most prolific goal scorer. There's Calvert-Lewin, who I love as a player. I used to know him when he was at Sheffield United, but he still has his injury problems, and he hasn't, set the world on fire this season. He was great season prior, but still, and they're kind of struggling right now. And if they don't get someone who can score goals, they're just going to be very similar to the way Wolves have been this season, where they've been good, but the goals aren't going to get him in top 4.
It's true, and obviously with this deal that with Aubameyang, he's linked with a loan move to either Barca or to Juve. And there's part of me now that's thinking, I'm thinking back to, I don't remember what year it was, but I'm thinking back to Carlos Tevez I swear it was the Aguero season, where they were behind. It was either that season or the first time they won the league. It was one of the 2 times, and my memory misserves me, but Tevez had fallen out. Remember, he was away playing golf, and I remember City fans I remember City and Man United fans came together to burn Tevez shirts, and then City started struggling for goals, and they turned to him again. And I remember at the time, as a bitter Man United fan, I was like, "You sold your souls to the devil to win the league," but it worked because he came in and scored 2 or 3 absolutely important goals in the run-in, and maybe that's what Arsenal need to do. Like, again, maybe they're thinking more long term. Maybe Arsenal fans, and we're wrong as rivals to say it, maybe their thinking is much more long term. And it's like, do you know what? We only plan to make it into the top 6 this year, and we think we can. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Let's keep to our process and keep to our plan, which is we'll clear out the dead wood. Even if we're a bit thin, it doesn't matter. We'll sign the right player in the summer. We're not going to panic buy. We're not going to rush. And we could all look back at this in 18 months, 2 years' time and say, do you know what? They were absolutely spot on for that approach. But this is odd. It does feel odd. It doesn't quite feel right. And I don't know. It's just smell a bit of a rat with it. It's just almost, I don't know. I don't even know what the word for it is. It just doesn't feel right to let all these players go and bring nobody in. And maybe they will. Maybe we're going to get, because I did see a report that came out earlier from somebody. We shared it on our Twitter pages. I can't remember his name. I want to say it was Mike. I think it's Mike McGrath, who said that Everton preparing themselves for people to start making offers for Calvert-Lewin, with Newcastle discussing him and Arsenal having been. It says Arsenal have just had a long-term interest. There's no suggestion that Arsenal will bid, but it'll be interesting to see what they do. It really will. It will be really interesting to see what they do. Yeah,
definitely. I think if I was Everton, I'd wait till summer now because of Vlahovic going. Everyone's going to be in for a striker in summer, so I'd rather wait so they can make a bit more money if I was Everton. But it is weird. I want to see how long they can hold out on their resolve with Aubameyang because, like I said, they're just not scoring at the moment. And Aubameyang can cause a lot of crap, to put it simply, but he can score. Like, if they need someone who can just put the ball in the back of the net, Aubameyang can do it. So I want to see how long they can last. If they can do it, props to Arteta and Arsenal for, holding to their guns and whatnot, but it's going to be a struggle for them.
Yeah, listen, and fair, as you say, fair play to them if it does work out their way. But as fans and as football fans, you can only speak about how you see things and everything else. And I get sticking to a plan, but sometimes in life, when there's an opportunity and an opening, you just got to go for it. And the door's open for top 4. Getting in the Champions League next year, the extra money that gives you enables you to buy that extra body. It enables you maybe to attract, if they had Champions League football right now, maybe they do land Vlahovic. Maybe they get him over Juve and that could be the major difference. But look, it's certainly going to be interesting. Viewers would love to know what you think and feel about Arsenal's approach here. Do any of you see Arsenal making a signing? Do any of you see Arsenal getting something done between now and the end of this transfer window. I'd like your views. I'd like your opinions. Get those comments in. Make sure like buttons are being smashed, please. I want to see that like number go up for us right about now. In keeping with Tottenham, there was a report today about another potential rejection for them, is in Frank Kesse saying no. You got them even to looking to reject them. You got Man United looking at lots of different midfielders as well. Kesse is someone a lot of United fans have sort of wanted. So yourselves at the Muppeteers, you know, I'll be blunt, you're kind of goats in the transfer stuff when it comes to Man United. You guys are very, and if you guys were listening, do not follow the United Muppeteers, go and do it now. And you'll see, like I talk about a lot, there are certain outlets that push out news far earlier than some of the tier ones. They just don't always get the credit that they deserve. Can you see Man United making any signings?
For the next few days, honestly, probably not. Which is sad to say from obviously where I work and all that stuff as well. It's just being a United fan, but I'd be very surprised. I think a huge thing about it is that they want to bring in a new manager in the summer. Most likely Pochettino is seen as the favourite. That's from the Muppeteers, from everywhere else I've heard. Pochettino is seen as the clear favourite, but they haven't got him yet. So they don't want to do a January deal where, let's say it's Boubacar Kamara or Amadou Haidara or all these other midfielders, you know, I've been like with Kesse as well, obviously. They don't know if Pochettino will like him. I mean, I'd be very surprised if Pochettino didn't like someone like Kamara or Kesse, but still, I think they're just trying to be a bit safer. So I think, and what I've heard from when I've done work with the Manchester Evening News as well, is stuff like they're waiting for 4 deals in summer. They want to try and get a midfielder. I think Declan Rice is seen as a priority, as we saw after the West Ham game, where he said he loved playing there, and all the reports prior how he's talked to other England players like Shaw and Maguire about playing at United. But yeah, I think they're just going to sit back. No one knows what's happening with Jesse Lingard. That whole situation's gone. No one knows what's happened there. That's just collapsed.
Well, yeah, and then, yesterday that was twisted into like he's a prisoner. Today it's more, well, he isn't trying to force a move, because in the summer, and this is what Dean Jones told us on the show on Tuesday on the Done Deal show, like Lingard's trying to keep his options open for the summer, because in the summer the world's his oyster.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, like Newcastle are doing great deals, but they could still get relegated. Like if they have 2 injuries or something, they could easily still go down, and then Lingard's stuck with a championship team. It makes sense for Lingard to just wait it out. As a United fan, I hope he doesn't. I hope we make a bit of money out of him. But yeah, you've got him. Martial's gone on loan, obviously, same with Ahmad, as we said. And I know Van de Beek is in talks with Crystal Palace. So I think that'll probably happen, but who knows with Manchester United. But
yeah. Do you think Donny Van de Beek's move to Palace is good for him? Do you see him being a Man United player?
I think it will be good for the fact that he's going to get used to the Premier League a bit more, getting, you know, guaranteed minutes and most likely guaranteed starts. Well, you'd hope so. I think it would be good to see how he's like in the Prem. And a big thing is, again, it's going to be on who the new manager is, because we've kept hearing that it's normally going to be between. So we've heard a bunch of names, haven't we, for the next United manager, and it's Pochettino, Erik ten Hag. There's been talk of Ruben Amorim, the Sporting Lisbon manager, which is a bit left field. And then there's like Julian Lopetegui and Luis Enrique. The two are Ten Hag and Poch, though. They're both big fans of Van de Beek. Obviously, Ten Hag had him at Ajax. He had those really good, successful seasons with him. And then Poch was a massive fan of him when there's a quote that's always thrown around on Twitter and online and in articles and stuff of when Tottenham played Ajax in that Champions League run. And he said, like, Donny is like their star player and stuff, and no one talks about him as much. So I think it could be a big thing in summer that he might get more game time under like someone like Pochettino or Ten Hag. And until then, it makes sense that he can try and, you know, build a bit of confidence. Maybe he can have a similar way that Lingard did at West Ham last year, where he can come back, have absolutely load of confidence, and then he actually gets played like Lingard when he came back. But yeah, hopefully something like that can happen.
Yeah, look, I want it to work out. I really do, because we know I always say to people, like, football gets like boiled down to I know it's a simple game, but sometimes we oversimplify analysis. his technical ability has nothing to do with him being good enough or not to play in the Premier League. The Premier League is like all leagues. It's more than your technical ability. It's handling the pace of that league. The Italian league is slower. Doesn't make it less difficult. It's just a different style of play. My analogy is always, sometimes just because you're good at playing tennis on clay don't mean you're going to be as good on grass. And football is very much like that. But people just see it all as it's the same sport wherever you go, wherever you play it, and it just isn't. And Donny might not be suited to it. As well as I do, though, there are reports all the time coming out of the club that the club just don't think he's physically suited to the Premier League. Like, do you kind of do you agree with those reports? And like, what's your sort of thought on people, the way people react to that? Like, how dare you say that? Like, some people seem to get really triggered by it.
Yeah, he has quite a big fan base on Twitter. It's very polarizing, but I don't believe them that much. I think it'd be very weird to say that if United is spending that much money. Like, I know it's still only like 35, 40 million, but that's obviously still a lot of money in general. They wouldn't spend that amount of money on someone they thought wasn't physically good enough for the Premier League, I assume, unless the scouting system just got away with it somehow. Obviously, there's the whole talk of he was like fourth choice or something because they wanted a Grealish or James Maddison, and that just didn't happen. I know that was a big thing under Solskjaer, but I think he's physically fine with it. He's done well in the Champions League with Ajax. Obviously, the Eredivisie is a bit of a weaker league. I think that's quite easy to say without getting too much controversy. But I think he's good enough to play physically, that's for sure. I think he's obviously not this pressing machine like United have, like, let's say Fred, for example, who, as we see, just runs around like a headless chicken a lot of the time and can win the ball back doing that. But he definitely still has a technical ability and he does have the physicality. I think just getting a bit more reps under a lot more guaranteed minutes. Somewhere at Palace, who are playing nice football at the moment, they have a very nice midfield already, and I think he'll slot in quite nicely there next to like Conor Gallagher and whatnot. But I think he could definitely be good enough in the summer, especially depending on which manager they get, because like I said, Poch loves him and he's played a similar player before when Dele Alli used to be really good, and then Ten Hag obviously got the best out of him. So I think Donny could be good in summer, but I think a loan right now makes the most sense, so he can get that confidence under his belt, I hope.
Yeah, I agree. And I like the loan deals for him and Martial because there's no obligation to buy, which means United can always call them back and play them. But it's almost this case of if you do take Donny back, he has to come back to play. If Martial kills it in Spain and we want him back, he has to come in, whether it's central, left or right, whatever. He has to come back and play and be a first teamer. You bring them back and say, right, there you go. First 10 games of the season, they make 2 substitute appearances. You're just going to start the whole process over again. And I want Man United. I'm very skeptical of how we're run. I'm sure I know yourselves are, the Muppeteers are. It's almost, I'm in this weird place with Man United of, I have so much faith in RANGNICK because of his track record of running clubs. I actually think Fletcher and Myrtle could do a good job, but it's whether or not they're enabled and empowered by the board and the owners to continue to do it if they're listened to long enough. The amount of stories we've heard from Moyes, LVG, Jose of they started well and then pulled the rug. That's my fear here is that we, even with these signings, the one thing I don't like is maybe Kamara doesn't fit what Poch wants. I feel like we need a club standard. So it's Kamara as a Man United player and the manager adapts to what we bring in. Until we're at that point, I still don't think we're ever going to arrive at the same level of consistency we used to deliver. Because if Pep leaves City, I don't believe the next manager they appoint wants a 10, 15, 20-man squad overhaul in 2 or 3 years. It'll be someone that goes, right, of that squad, I would love these 2 players to add to it, but I can make my football work with this squad. And that's what the best clubs in the world do now, because we're never getting a Fergie again who will build the club in his image. The club needs to build its own image, and then you employ people to, we're both in, well, I own the Football Terrace, but you're employed by someone, you work there. They employ you for your skills to bring your take on things, but there's still a Muppeteer standard. There's still something they want out of it. It isn't just, you run it exactly how you want and we have no say. Like, no one's going to give a manager those reins anymore. And I think if we get that right, it should work. But I am happy these loan deals are open and we can bring them back. Personally, though, I do think it's the beginning of the end for them. I just feel like I just feel like it will be a case of putting them in the shop window and then selling them in the summer to raise money for other people. Personally, I hope it isn't, because they're both very talented, but yeah, it just doesn't feel very promising from my point of view.
Yeah, I think it's definitely more regarding Martial that I think he's done, and they just couldn't get a sale for him this in the January window just because his wages are quite inflated, and he obviously hasn't been in great form now for the past 12 months, so no one's going to want to take. I think he's on around 250k, maybe a bit less, but still. Donny still has a bit of promise, obviously, though, because we've never seen the best Van de Beek yet in a United shirt, so hopefully that can happen. But I definitely agree that I think Martial's as good as gone. They're just hoping he can turn it around a bit like how Alexis Sanchez did at Inter, but we actually make some money back.
Yeah, I agree. And what is your take on like the impact that Rangnick has had on Man United so far? Because of course we saw the early reports of the players not wanting to run and work for him. They weren't sold on his coaching and training. There have been a lot of reports of he may not even be here at the end of this season in any capacity. What should be your take of what he has done sort of 6-7 weeks in?
Yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of Rangnick when he first came in. Surely, in regards to his coaching standards, I think he's obviously been a great creator and all that stuff. Like, he's obviously been great as a director of football for the Red Bull teams, and obviously he's one like the forefathers of the Gegenpress. But I was still a bit worried because he hasn't really managed that much over the past decade. Like, he was at Schalke at the start of the decade, and then he had a couple. I think he had like a season or two at Leipzig in between when they were picking managers such as Nagelsmann. But I've been a bit happier with him. I think a lot of people are forgetting that it's going to take a while for his system to be incorporated. We saw it at Liverpool with Klopp, and they are grinding out results. It's never going to be the most fun watching an interim manager. You never expected to. The Solskjaer interim run, that was lightning in a bottle, let's call it. I think no one expected that, and we all saw what happened. But we are getting results. Like, United are back in the top four for the time being. I know there's teams below them with games in hand, but still, you still need to get there. I definitely think he's shown improvement, and I think the players are starting to slowly get onto his side, as we saw with the reports early into his tenure where people were getting unhappy about having to run more, which is always great. I think there was a great report where saying they were upset they were finishing training at 6 p.m. or something in the dark. It was like, oh no.
Yeah, and do you know what it is though about that? Like, I was very angry at the time, and as fans, you react, you read it, and it's like, what do you mean? I work until 10 at night, you scumbags. And then you probably start to reflect on it a little bit more, and it might be a case of what it's like. You've got to look at it from when you try and be a little bit fair, right? It's okay, maybe they're being asked now to train later, but and it's not about money. It's about maybe that was when somebody spent time with their kids and they're now moaning they've got to train at that time. And it's like me and the kids play out in the garden and I can't because by the time I get home now it's dark. That can very easily be twisted into they don't want to train when it's dark. And we know that can happen. Things like Chinese whispers and stuff like that can kind of mess things up. But there did appear to be some real disgruntled nature of sorts, and there is no smoke without fire. And I do think player power has been a problem at the club. I think the Glazers have enabled it far too much. And I'm a bit like you. I was excited to see what Ralph could bring on the pitch. So I'm a little different in that regard, but I was more of a case of it's what he can do upstairs that intrigues me. And I've been imploring Man United fans to not get drawn into the banter of he ain't the god, he's the plod father, he's the vegan press people have been calling it and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, I get that, but I'm more like intrigued by what he does when he consults. I would love him to do a good job and be offered a permanent role somewhere at the club, because what he built at Leipzig, and I'm talking about the whole RB global project that he was heavily influential in. We need that. We need I'm not saying a new club identity. We're Manchester United, but we need to modernize it, because although I don't like the idea of being a business, businesses have to be modified. And I learned something when I worked at Barclays. I was on this training thing, like this leadership training course, and I used to hate this kind of training thing. I'm like, you don't learn anything. It's all role play. Do you remember that? Have you seen do you watch The Office? Have you seen The Office with Ricky Gervais? See the role where they have the day's training and it's all the role play. That's how I viewed it. It was just awful. But I got told this story, and it was like one of those things where I'm sitting there and I'm sarcastically answering. It was, why do you all think Blockbusters went out of business? And it was like, oh my God, because downloads came in and nobody wanted to walk to the video shop anymore. And I answered it wrong. And then my back's up. What do you mean it's wrong? That's exactly why it shut down. He said, no. He said, because, and he explained it. He said, actually, what happened at Blockbuster is they made the majority of their money and profits through late fees, because you'd rent it on the Friday and you had to get it back by the Sunday. But most people were bringing it back Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and getting charged late fees. That's where their profit was. Downloads didn't kill Blockbuster. What killed them is people started downloading because they couldn't overuse it and it was saving them money. Yeah. So if Blockbuster had modernized sooner, changed their approach and stopped making bad money, they wouldn't have gone out of business. And I was like, that's actually quite smart. Man United haven't modernized as a football club. We're still trying to do things like it's 1999 and we're getting caught a cropper. So rivals are looking, but you're spending money. But we're spending bad money after good because there's no plan with it. And that's why I'm desperate for Ralph to be successful, to modernize, what Manchester United are, what Manchester United are doing, so that we've spent enough money in the last 7-8 years to be toe-to-toe with Man City. Because we've spent about the same as them. So we've got, even with all cities rich, when someone said to me the other day, Newcastle now coming for you. I'm not worried about Newcastle's money. I'm worried about how well Newcastle are run, because if they're run well, they will overtake us. If that's all it comes down to. And if we will run as well as City or as well as Brighton on a pound for pound level, we'll be competitive every year. Pretty much. We just will be. And that's where Ralph for me is absolutely key, I think, moving forward for Man United.
Yeah, I think that, plus we don't know how much it's happened just because it only happened at the start of the month, but with Ed Woodward stepping down, Richard Arnold coming in as the new CEO, and he has said, and it is only just him saying, so we don't know if it's actually going to happen, but he said he's going to step away from it, from the footballing side, as much as Woodward did, because he used to be so hard negotiations. He said he's just going to let the football people do the football stuff and he's just going to take care of the finances. If that's true, that's great for United, obviously, because we all know how bad Woodward was at that job. So if he's allowing the likes of Murtaugh, Fletcher, Rangnick, all these players, all these heads do the stuff, then United should be back in it again, because City did that. You haven't seen their owner get his hand in the club. He said, okay, Jonathan Soriano, cheeky big Aristein, you go do that. You obviously get Pep, etc., etc. We've been too much like PSG. I know PSG have been semi-successful, a bit more due to being Ligue 1, but we need to be closer to City, which hurts to say as a United fan.
Yeah, and look, honestly, if you took PSG out of Ligue 1 and put Man United in there, I think we'd have won some league titles in the last 3 or 4, 5 years. We would have done. And, whether you make it to a Champions League semi-final, final, or go out in the quarters, you ain't won it. That's, at the end of the day, you got to win that thing to be successful in it. Anyone who's not won the Champions League is not successful in the Champions League. So I completely hear that. I do. We had that super chat there from the Bill that says, I'm sure Ralph will not get the job, but against we are talking about the incompetent United board, so anything can happen. United is a dead club. I hear where you're coming from, the Bill. If they do appoint him, the only way I would accept it is if by the end of the season we were just looking like the best team in England and we stormed the Champions League and we actually looked good. Then you'd almost be like, okay, well, I can understand it. But I don't want us to, but equally, I don't want us to go on a 3-month great run, break some unbeaten winning, break a winning streak record. And I'm getting at with the Ollie thing here, because we all did it.
There've been reports about that recently as well. I saw a couple newspapers say as such that they're considering it and Rangnick would be fine with it. And my God, please not again.
There's a comment here I don't understand.
Oh, I think it's about the Australian Open in tennis.
Is it right? See, again, I've not followed it this year. I just haven't had the time. But thank you very much. He won today.
He's playing Rafael Nadal in the final on Sunday.
There we go. Yeah, I just haven't.
It's okay.
I was just, I don't know. I'm so out. The only thing I knew about the Australian Open this year was, of course, the controversy with Djokovic, and that was I was following that very, very closely. It was a madness. It was an absolute madness. Trying to listen to Terry, but these Liverpool fans are distracting me. Yeah, Liverpool fans are gassed today. Liverpool fans are absolutely over the moon. So let Liverpool fans celebrate. Let them do their thing, you know. Terry, you need to bring in Alex, the Chelsea fan. So funny. The Russian guy. Yeah, he's great. We have this Russian Chelsea fan that phones in. He's deadpan in a Russian accent. He's just hilarious. And I don't even know if he tries to be, but it just is almost like a Billy Connolly-esque. He just, whatever he says is just funny. Yeah, he's a great guy here. Any questions you've got for myself or Mike, make sure you send them in. Liverpool fans saying title loading this season. Title loading this season. No, well, maybe. Can you see that at all? Could you see a massive shock and City giving up a 12-point gap?
No. To put it simply, it's just this Man City team with Pep is they're just way too efficiently good. They don't need a striker, and it doesn't matter for them. They'll still steamroll the league. Like, it's upsetting. They're just that good, and we've seen it on the other side. Obviously, when the season before Liverpool when it went. But sorry about that. Yeah, just Liverpool can do that. I think maybe in the future, but not yet.
Look, I'm not as sort of unyielding as you on it. I think there is a chance they need, if they get to the game at the Etihad 6 or less points behind, I think they'll beat them at the Etihad. I got Liverpool will do it, and they'll do it, but they need to maintain between now. They need to be 6 points or less behind them by the time they go to the Etihad, I think, which is in mid-April. They'll have half a chance there, and I want them to be, because I want there to be some excitement. You know, if Liverpool would have lost to Palace and were like 12, 15 points behind, it just makes so many dead rubbers for the last 4 months of the season, and it's like as someone forget like content creating and talking football. As someone who pays for BT Sport and Sky, you can't have that many dead rubbers. It just makes the games like as much as I like analyzing football. I'll be blunt. I'm not as much of a purist in the sense where I can watch a game that means nothing to me and study it and watch it and care. There's got to be something riding on the football match. Otherwise, I just find it really hard to watch.
Yeah, I'm the exact same. I think it'd be sad just to watch these dead games at the end of the season, but I hope Liverpool can get into it a bit more, even though I don't want Liverpool to win the league. But still, I'm always choosing City over Liverpool. But I think the City team is just a joke. And I know I was saying that a couple of minutes ago, but they just are. You can't really criticize them as much. Like, their one weakness is their striker, but it doesn't matter because they still score goals. They don't concede them. And they just completely suffocate the other team with their possession and whatnot. So it's just absurd seeing what they're like these days.
No, I hear you. I hear you. I really, really do. Nabil's back with a super chat. He says, whatever you guys said, I don't believe it. You guys are still hopeful, I think you mean. The new CEO is the same as Woodward, and we have the same owners. We ain't winning anything, is what Nabil says there, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I assume it's for what I said about Richard Arnold. I mean, when I was saying it, I said the same. Like, it's just his words right now. We haven't seen the action yet, but I'm trying to be a bit hopeful as a United fan. I don't want to think we are going to just be crap for years and years. I hope something happens.
I'm a bit like Nabil. I don't think it's going to work because of the Glazers, but
there is that.
There's no point of me. I'm not going to sit in that depressed footballing state the whole time. I'm just going to. Equally, I'm not allowing myself to get too excited. I'm just taking it game by game, enjoying each individual game, and seeing where it goes. And fingers crossed we see it improve, because that's the mad thing. Like, I don't want the Glazers to fail. I want them to be successful on the pitch. Like, I don't want my team failing. Like, ideal scenario, they sell, we get the best owners, the richest owners in the world, and they run our club brilliantly for 100 years plus. That's not really the most realistic outcome is the Glazers run it their way, but they just twerk the football element, because as I said, they have spent the money for us to be successful. That's more annoying than not spending it. They've spent it and we wasted it. It feels like I've got the winning lottery ticket, but I've misplaced it. You know, that's how it feels to me as a Red, and it's a crazy one. In terms of top four, how do you see that going now? Because Arsenal thus far, there are 3 or 4 days to go, have signed no one. Tottenham have signed no one. West Ham they're just there. They won't go away. And Man United have been Man United this year. Who do you see making the top four? And is there an outside chance Chelsea could maybe even be dragged into this in your view, Mike?
Yeah, I think Chelsea could easily be dragged into it. I know just from a United perspective that if United win their game in hand, they're only 4 points behind. I know Spurs and I think Arsenal could go ahead of United on games in hand. So I think they may be in it now, especially like if they drop a game to like one of the clubs around them. I think obviously the top two are sorted. That goes without saying, really. But I honestly don't know because, like I said, Chelsea dropping down a bit. West Ham have dropped off the mark a bit. Like they obviously had an absolute stormer of the start of the season, but they have started playing a bit worse. And then after that, it's like United are playing very ugly, but they're getting results. Like I said, I think they've lost one game under RANGNICK, so they're still getting the points. And like they are fourth currently, albeit yeah, there are games in hand. And then Arsenal and Spurs are weird, like we're saying. They need transfers. Arsenal need a striker. Spurs need to keep Conte happy. But if they can, I think, in my eyes, I think obviously City, Liverpool. I think Chelsea will stay in, but I think they're going to be right back into it. They're not going to be chasing second. I think they're going to be fighting to stay in. And then it's going to be either United or Spurs, just because I'm a big fan of the way Conte manages. I think he's a great manager. And I think if he does stay, I do think Spurs could get back into it. But it's going to be really, really, really close. And even like the likes of Wolves could make it hard because I think they could easily get themselves back in there. They're not far off already. They don't have a goal scorer there. Well, they have Jimenez, but he's not really scoring much. But still, I think they could easily get in the conversation. And who knows right now? I think it's between a good 5-6 clubs. I hope United, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Spurs or if Arsenal somehow get a striker, maybe even Arsenal. I think it's way too hard to tell who's going to be most likely that fourth team in the top four.
Yeah, listen, I think you speak a lot of sense there. I said when Conte was appointed, I made Spurs my favourites based on what they told us. So we're going to go and buy some quality in January. We've got Antonio Conte. United also had Oli at the time. So we've now got RANGNICK. That gives us a better chance. Arsenal have always had that advantage. I was told by Gooners this wasn't an advantage, but these are the same Gooners that support and praise the process. So I'm confused. But I was like, you've had a manager for 2 years working on his system and his team. That gives you an advantage over RANGNICK and Conte because they haven't had 2 years building and molding a team to play their way. So that was always Arsenal's benefit that they had that. And plus those youngsters were kicking on. I think, as I said a little earlier, I think Tottenham and Arsenal they could have closed that door behind Man United by buying some quality because we're all about the same as each other at the minute in terms of results and performances. You bring in extra quality, and I think you could pull away from Man United, put pressure on us. They're really letting Man United off the hook. They really are, in my opinion. I'm so happy with the way they're operating because I'm not celebrating it though too much because I'm scared I'm tempting fate. Because if Arsenal would have brought in a top-level striker and a very good midfield player, I think they would have made top four. And if Diaz and the Amrabat and Traore all join Tottenham with what they've already got, I think they could have made top four. So Chelsea fans should be happy with this because Chelsea have been off the boil a bit. And we saw those reports from the Athletic a few days ago about still being some disharmony with the attackers at the football club. And I'm very intrigued to see how that plays out over the next month. They had a good result against Tottenham. Will they kick back into gear from there? Yeah. Or are we beginning to see what we did with nearly every other single manager of players just losing a little bit of faith in him? And I don't think there's everyone's got an opinion, but all these things are up in the air right now. But if those two clubs sign nobody, Chelsea and Man United make the top four, in my opinion, purely because our squads just possess better players, and it isn't about which managers. I think we'll just have enough to push ourselves past them and stuff like that. And I felt like Conte needed those players. Sometimes you need yourself and a few new heads to come in, because one thing Spurs have got to get rid of is their Spursy mentality. Like Spursy, and I know it's like a bit of banter to say it, but that Spursy mentality has got to be flushed out of that football club, and you do that by bringing in a Conte. And you give him 2 or 3 players so that he has 2 or 3 that are of his mindset straight away. And you try and make that infect the dressing room, because I think Spurs will be in a position with a game or two to go to make top 4, but they'll throw it away. I
Yeah.
believe that Arsenal could get themselves into that position, but because of the overall lack of quality, they just might not have enough to blow the door down. Where Man United, I'm not saying it's going to be pretty, but you'll get Ronaldo, Bruno, Cavani, Rashford, Greenwood are going to, for me, will score enough goals. And we have kept quite a few clean sheets under Ralph. And as long as if we can maintain the same level of clean sheets that he's had so far, and those boys start scoring again like they've started to in the last couple of games, then Man United have, I think, the advantage in that. But I'm excited. That's mad again. It's like so many seasons on the bounce now. The top 4 race has been more interesting than the title race. And it's a little bit of a shame because I thought this year, I really thought we were going to get a 3 or 4 horse race for the title, which would make it even more exciting. But it's definitely going to be intriguing to see who makes it. And viewers, of course, I want your thoughts. I want your feelings. I want to know who you think is going to come into the top 4 races favourites as we return after the international stroke winter break. Comment here says, do you know how mad it sounds that we are playing 3 games in 5 to 7 weeks? Deep that. What do you mean?
I don't know either.
I hate 7. I don't know what you mean by that, mate. Do you mean 3 games a week for 6 to 8 weeks? Who and where? I'm very confused. H7. I actually don't understand that comment at all. You remember, so I put it up. I don't get it. I want to understand it. I need you to put that comment back in. Terry, so gutted. We lost Nicola Barella in both games against Liverpool. That's just. I mean, Champions League starting up again soon. I mean,
can't wait.
I mean, I've missed. Do you know what? I don't know about you. Maybe I've become too elitist in this area. I don't really start enjoying it till the knockouts.
Yeah, it's the same. I completely agree. I think going just off a United perspective, the group was a bit easy this time. Obviously, last year's was a lot harder, but this one was a bit easier. And I am very excited for the Atletico game. I think it's going to be absolutely horrible to watch the way United are playing currently against an Atletico Madrid, who are also playing horrible. So that's not going to be fun to watch, whatever, for a neutral. But as a United fan, it's going to be torture.
You know what? You say that, though. That's often when football throws you a gem.
Yeah.
I remember once, we used to do it at my house when I was younger. If I wasn't at a United game, we'd do Super Sunday session where the boys would come around and watch have some beers, some ciders, whatever, watch football, bit of poker in the evening, whatever. And I think it was a big game on second, and I swear it was Liverpool-Chelsea. But the first game before it on TV, random they did this, was Burnley-West Brom. I'm like, boys, be round by like R12. They're like, nah, we'll get there about R3, right? They didn't want to watch that game. I watched it. It was an absolute brilliant match. It was brilliant. There was goals, there's red cards, there's controversy. I said, guys, you've enjoyed it. Sometimes those ones you think are going to be awful turn out to be brilliant. But yeah, the Champions League's going to be interesting. Like, who do you think? Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite to win it in your view?
You're gonna unfortunately have to say Man City, aren't you? Like, I mean, to be fair, there's always the Pep mess up where he will do something really stupid in the last round, like he did in the final last year, where he just did play a defensive midfielder, or all his other weird experiments. But yeah, I think you still got to go with City just because the rest of Europe doesn't look that good at the moment. Maybe Bayern, but Real, not really. Italian teams, again, not really. You're talking, unless PSG do something crazy, like obviously they always have that chance with Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe.
Yeah.
But outside of that, City look the best team. But again, it's Champions League. Ronaldo carried Real Madrid for years, and then it could just go down to a single individual. And when PSG have 3 of them, who knows really? But I think if I had to bet on it, I'd say Man City, even though it'd probably be a terrible return.
Do you know what? I'm so desperate for City not to win it. I'm kind of like it's weird. Like I would rather Liverpool win another Champions League. I know that puts them further in front of us in terms of totals than Man City get it, because I'm trying my best to play like 4D chess, where I'm like, they've won 4 Prems in 5 years pretty much now. All those domestic, if they throw a Champions League trophy in it, there is then a debate of, is that the greatest Premier League team ever that's won 4? You start to go, and then you start, and I don't want them to be able to compete with either of our best 2 that won Champions League. So I'm desperate for them not to. Obviously, I don't want Liverpool to win it either, because I don't want them getting. Are they on 6 or 7? They're on 7, 6.
6.
I don't want them getting on to 7, because that then means in my life I don't think we're catching them. Like, and this is honestly so morbid, but I would love to die with more Champions Leagues than Liverpool. That's like when I'm 90 and I'm on my deathbed, and I'll be like, yeah, we got 8, they got 7. I'm so happy, or whatever. I'd just be like, yes, I could die happy. My kids are already taken care of, so like the family stuff's done. Like everything's life insurance is great. That's all sorted, right? They're happy. I just care about my club now, but yeah, I think look, I get why City are the shouts. I still think there's a mental thing with City. And I've met some City fans, some good City fans, who don't really care about it. And I almost feel like that seeps into the dressing room a little bit. Like Anfield on a Champions League night, Old Trafford on a Champions League night, Stamford Bridge on a Champions League night just feels different to the Etihad on a Champions League night. There is just a different kind of sense and feeling and everything else. And of course, they can win it. You've got Bayern Munich that are excellent. I feel like Liverpool might do it again, you know.
Yeah,
I don't know
would be
why.
surprising.
They're just almost, because I feel like if they're still in the title race, maybe not. But if by the knockout, I think they'll get through the next round against Inter. That's no disrespect. I just think they'll beat Inter. If we get to the quarterfinals and they've played their game in hand, but they're 10 points behind City, they become all about the Champions League, and you will just see an energy and an approach to those games where they'll just blow people's socks off, and they don't have to worry about the lack of energy come Saturday afternoon because they're already secure in the top 4 and they're not winning the league. So for them, it's going to be, let's go all out to like get that done. I think they've got a great chance, as it were. I've kind of written Chelsea off this year because I know that it's not impossible to repeat it, but teams don't often renew it. So I'm almost, but it's not on the chance to win. It's more the probability of them winning it 2 years on the bounce is so thin that I can't look at them in that way. So I'm going with Liverpool as my pick. Okay. Do you think Man United have any chance, though? Do you think could you conceivably see it when Man United even just go on a good run in this tournament?
I think part of me who's trying to be a realist says no. The other part of me says we have Cristiano Ronaldo, and that's his competition. So there is always that chance when you have Ronaldo, you could go as far as winning it. So I think there's that. United have enough of those difference makers who, in those games when they are 2 legs, but still there could be 1 or 2 goals in it. And I'm going to probably bet on United doing it because of, as we said prior, like Ronaldo, Cavani, Rashford, Greenwood, Bruno, etc. I think they could. I don't think they'll win it. Obviously, part of me would love to, but I think they could get maybe to the semis. I don't know who they'd get. We don't know who will get in the quarters yet, do we? They haven't. They do the quarters and semis or something, don't they? I can't remember. How they do the draws these days, but they'll get past Atletico, I think, in my opinion.
I always look at it from the point of view of it depends who knocks who out. We know one of PSG or Real Madrid are out. You know, one of Inter and Liverpool are going out. In relation to that, I think what helps Man United, I mean, one of Atletico and United goes out as well from that perspective. But if you go through to the next round and Villarreal have knocked out Juventus and Salzburg pull off a miracle and knock out Bayern Munich, it opens up. And then the only way I see Man United get into a semi or beyond is if they get one of those where you kind of get a little lucky with the draw. Like we then get, and not saying that Salzburg won't beat us, but you get Salzburg or you get a Villarreal in the next round. Well, I don't think we can get Villarreal to the semis, but you know, we beat Atletico and then we get Benfica, and you beat Benfica, but then by some miracle, Villarreal are in the semi-finals. That's the only way I see us doing it. If we end up getting in the quarterfinals, we get Chelsea, and then the semi-final draw, even if we beat Chelsea, was going to be PSG or Bayern Munich. I just don't see us having enough quality to beat some of the better teams round after round after round. Does that make sense? We'd have to fluke it a little bit and whatever else. And Sean here says, sounds like a Disney movie. It does. But listen, we saw it happen at the reason I don't write it off is it kind of happened to England at the Euros. We deserve to be in the final because we beat who we beat. And we did knock out Germany, to be fair, but it weren't the best Germany. And we deserve to be there. But it wasn't as though we got a fairly simplistic route. Like if you could pick our route to that final, you pretty much would have picked that. The same as the World Cup. Like,
I was just about to say the World Cup one as well.
Exactly. So that's the only way I see Man United being able to do it is if we get a few favourable draws. Outside of that, if we get big teams who match us in quality, I just don't think we're a good enough team yet to be able to like cope with that, as it were.
Yeah.
I wish we were, but that's just not the reality right now.
Yeah, there's always the chance, though. Like I said, the difference makers. You could have a godlike game from De Gea for one leg, and then the second leg, Ronaldo does what Ronaldo does, and you're through. So you just got to hope on stuff like that.
Nobody thought we'd beat PSG, and we did. And
Exactly.
I remember doing my preview for that game, and just saying we got no chance, we're out. And the pelters I got when we went through, but I was like, but none of you thought we were getting through, bro.
No.
None of you expected it. We all, especially losing the first leg 2-0. Like, it was just, that was what was amazing about that night. Is I think we were one of the only teams ever to come back from 2-0 down in the first leg when the second leg's away from home. Like, it was just such a rarity to happen. It was crazy. We have some more super chats that have come in here. The first one explains what that the comment meant. It says, Terry, the comment that guy made is Arsenal only have 3 games in 8 weeks. Is that because of no FA Cup, no Champions League?
Probably, yeah.
And
the only competition they've got left is the Prem, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, only
that's the international break. Yeah,
only 3 games, and like, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just going to go and check it because that strikes me as strange. I mean, that does give them a chance. It does. However, and I mean however in a nice way here, there is also the potential, though, that is damaging as well, is it not? Because rhythm must be key, and match fitness. But I mean, they only have the Prem left. Oh, right. Yeah, that's because they've got 2 games that have been postponed because of Chelsea being at the World Club Championship and Liverpool's final. So they play Wolves on the 10th, and then they play Brentford on the 19th, and they don't play another Prem game until the 6th of March, then the 13th of March. So, so 8 weeks they're going to play, so essentially to the 10th. Yeah, wow. Well, it's kind of 4 because you play on the 13th. So if it's just over 8 weeks, you're playing 4, but it's basically a game every 2 weeks on average. I didn't really realize that. That's crazy. AFTV is going to be quiet. Do you know what I mean? For a few weeks. But I mean, look, that can go one or two ways. You can go into each game giving it 120% hell for leather because you know you've got enough recovery time. Equally, you can find yourselves out of rhythm. So it's an interesting one. Yeah. Arsenal fans say 30 years FC to Liverpool fans, yet you'll never hold a trophy again. # finished FC. Overrated here, just having a pop at the Gooners in the comments. Brian says, not a Klopp player. I think this might be at you, Mike. Not a Klopp player, plays left and right wing, can play as an inverted winger, skillful, amazing stamina, direct. You obviously have never watched him.
I agree with all of that. I think it's just when you do look at some of his defensive stats, such as his like pressures and pressing, it's not that high. He might be able to show it under Klopp, but just from what I've seen at Porto, he's not always been seen as someone who is that kind of gegenpresser where we've seen in like Liverpool, hopefully United sometime, but still he could be doing that. And that could just be a product of the Porto system where he's been asked to do so much attacking wise that he is allowed to, rest a little bit on defensive side. So hopefully that changes for Liverpool fans. But from what I've seen, like I agree with all the other stuff in regards to his creation and attacking ability. I think he's great there. It's just the pressing aspect.
I hear you. This Man United team has always been structured like a cup team. Look at the cup run over the years, without winning one, of course. But I think United will be in the semis this year. Listen, I hope you're right. Listen, we get a set, finish in the top 4, Champions League semi-final, win the FA Cup. You know what I mean? That's just me dreaming here. That's from where we were after Watford. That's a good season. And it's just like I'm saying with Tottenham and Arsenal. I know you have beginning season expectations and where do you come at the end, but the world changes during a season, and, if Leicester City would have thrown away the league title in the last 2 games, they would have been gutted. Like, although they shouldn't have been in it from the start, 5,000 to 1 odds, they would have been gutted not to have won it. And I think if we were in a position as United fans only 2 or 3 weeks ago, about 5, 6, 7 weeks ago, where you're looking down the table rather than up. So, yeah, that kind of end would be good. If United win the Champions League, does Ralph remain as manager? Good question.
So I've heard from people who I've talked to and interviewed and people who are quite big in Germany. He wants to stay. Ralph isn't just going to be fine with it. Like if he won the Champions League, he'd want to be manager. He wants to be manager anyway. I mean, Manchester United manager. Why wouldn't he want to be that when he hasn't really been that much of a manager recently in the past few years? But I think it's going to be hard again. And we spoke about Arteta's resolve with Aubameyang. I think it's going to be the same with United's higher ups in Rangnick, because are they going to stick with their supposed plan with like Pochettino or Ten Hag, or are they just going to go with it again? I hope they stick with it, because I don't want Solskjaer flashbacks, but still, I wouldn't be surprised if he stays on for an extra year, to be fair.
Yeah, listen, again, it's for me, it's how we're playing, and it's that sustainability factor. Are we playing in a way that's sustainable? Is there a better manager option? I think with Ralph, I think he'd be happy with either to be the manager or to have a permanent role at the club. Yeah. Almost like, and I don't care what they call it, just let him run it. Let him be in charge of Myrtle and Fletcher. Let him make those decisions and whatever else it is. And I think he'd be pretty happy with that. You know, being the boss of the new manager would be great. And I would love it. You know, you see, for instance, you know, the way Ten Hag has worked with Overmars and Van der Sar. It's almost, you know, I'm just going to throw Poch's name in. Have Poch, who reports into Fletcher and Myrtle, who report into Rangnick. That for me just feels nice. It feels, you know, they can all get on. You had the football minds up there and their experiences across continents, competitions, as players, as managers. You suddenly have, I mean, you would have someone on our board, essentially, would be what Ralph would do, who's, yeah. I'm not sure. I'm sure he played football. I haven't even checked, but he's managed at the highest level. He's managed in the Champions League. He gets it. You got Fletcher, who's a club legend there, who, when you talk to people about Fletcher, I know he's not fashionable because he's Scottish, blonde hair and pale, doesn't have an exotic name, but he's very well respected in the game. He obviously knows his football, talks football well. John Myrtle, again, someone that when you do your research into football people, he's someone that's looked at as very credible. And then if you get a better manager in, and Poch may not be my preference, but I just use him as you've suddenly got a team that you look at and go, it's much better than Matt Judge and Woodward. Do you know what I mean? It's better. It's better. It's much better. But we'll see. I don't see Arsenal winning the Premier League for 2 more decades. Can you imagine? Can you listen?
It'd be great.
Do you know what? Actually, I'll say this: it would only be great if we win some in that time. Like, if 20 more years pass, and I will have hair by then because the transplant's going to give me hair back, but I'll have a nice mop like yours, mate. But if 20 years go by and Arsenal haven't won one, and nor have we, I ain't bantering no one. There's no banter to be had there. Like, it's one of them. I mean, but listen, you're a young pup. You won't remember this, but if in the even in 98, 99, if you'd have said, I know it's been 10 years, nearly 10 years, Liverpool, but if you'd have said to them, it'll be another 20 odd, you'd have been called a liar. You would just be called a liar. Like, nobody would have believed you. So I know it's a bit of banter, but this is why our clubs have got to fix up, mate, because legitimately you can go that 1 year. I mean, we've been nearly a decade at United. It's gone so quick. Yeah. To think Fergie's not been here for nearly 10 years already is crazy, and it sneaks up on you. It really does. You know, it really, really. I bet there are some Liverpool fans that have went back through the archive the last time Liverpool won a league title and look at me then. Look what I was wearing, shell suits. You know what I mean? Reebok classics. Like, those are fashionable back then. No mobile phone, pager on the hip. Do you know what I'm saying?
Like, I mean, it's the same, isn't it? 20 years is a long time. 20 years ago, Liverpool, Leeds United were in the Champions League semi-finals, and look what happened to them over the 2 decades. Hopefully, it's just changes. Yeah.
There was other teams. Bayern Leverkusen were a big powerhouse at that time. You had, I'll tell you, a team that always used to play good football, did well in the Champions League for a few years. Deportivo La Coruña.
Oh God, yeah, I remember that.
They were there. they were there, and I'll tell you an interesting one, because they're looked at as very good and fashionable again, because from Klopp until now they've been there. But in the 90s, Borussia Dortmund was serious. They won it. They knocked us out. They won it. They were a team you didn't want to play, and then they went through that period of like late 90s, early noughties, where you just lost sight of them. They were gone. They were finished. Like, pretty much for a decade, they just disappeared from the game. And it can happen. It really, really can. And 2004 is 18 years. It doesn't feel that long ago to me, because it doesn't feel that long ago for me, because I've been an adult that whole time. So I remember it all. Like, it's crazy. It's mad to think as well. Like, that 5 years of senior school feels like a lifetime until you leave school, and it's like I've done that nearly 4 times. I've done it 4 times since. It's crazy. But there we go. Listen, viewers, I've absolutely loved the show. Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on Straight Facts. It really, really has. Please make sure you hit the like button before you leave. You subscribe to the Football Terrace. Mike, let everyone know where they can find you on socials, please.
Yeah. So if you just want to follow me personally, it's on my Twitter. It's at Mike Parrott, 2 R's, 2 T's, and an underscore at the end. And if you want to follow the United Muppeteers, where we do great content, we do a podcast as well. I'll have to have you on sometime, Terry. But also, just great content as well on Twitter. It would be at Muppeteers. We also have a YouTube and a website and whatnot. So follow the United Muppeteers as well. But also, yeah, follow my personal. Always good having a few more followers in there.
There we go. Absolutely brilliant. Until next time, everybody, look after yourselves. Take care. Goodbye. God bless.